How does religion, natural history, and science all come together to shape both a medieval and modern understanding of gemstones? Today, we're going to be exploring Hildegard of Bingen's Physica in comparison to Adam Sandler's Uncut Gems in order to answer that question. As you may recall from our readings, the medieval understanding of the natural world can be understood through the works of Hildegard of Bingen. More specifically, the Physica, or a collection of 9 books that describe the scientific and medicinal properties of various parts of the natural world. Today we'll be looking at the 4th, which is a lapidary, or a medieval book describing the supposed virtues and properties of gemstones. Today we will not be focusing on each one of these gemstones and their specific function, but we'll be focusing on the history of scientific and religious tradition that shape both the medieval and modern understanding of gemstones. It is important that we understand that Hildegard did not invent or discover the powers and characteristics of all these gems. She rather cataloged and consolidated knowledge from many different lapidaries across different geographic areas and places in time. Long before Hildegard's time, we can find account of ancient Greek texts about stones and their powers. These include Theophrastus on stones from 3rd century BCE, which made account of appearance and usage, although it involves very little magic or supernatural powers. We can also find the Orphic Lithica from the 4th century CE, which is a poem that contains about 30 stones and their magical properties and ritual uses. Some other ancient texts include Natural History by Pliny the Elder and De Vertibulus Lapidum, which contains descriptions of certain stones and their relation to astrology. However, it's very unlikely that Hildegard interacted with these texts directly, as they were separated by language, geographic distance, and over 1,000 years in time. She more than likely gained this knowledge through intermediate texts written in medieval antiquity before her. One example is Isidore of Seville's Etymology, which had short entries on many different types of stones and drew information from Pliny and Silenus of ancient Rome. Another source she most likely drew from is Marbode of Rennes' Liber Lapidum, which accounted 60 stones along with their physical, medicinal, and magical traits. This text was the most popular medieval lapidary of its time. However, Hildegard's bookshelf is not the only source of tradition of gemstones. We can also trace back to the intersection of Judaism and Christianity. In Exodus, a breastplate was worn by the high priestess of the Israelites. This breastplate contained 1 jewel for each of the 12 Jewish tribes. This breastplate sparked a long history of Jewish tradition and jewelry that follows the Jewish diaspora throughout time. So why do we give spiritual meaning and value to these inanimate objects? Although we no longer use gemstones in the medical field to heal ailments, we have not lost our spiritual tradition tied to gemstones. In Adam Sandler's Uncut Gems, Adam's character Howard Ratner plays a Jewish jeweler working in New York's Diamond District. When Kevin Garnett, an NBA legend whose last name fittingly is a gemstone, goes to Howard's showroom, he is shown a rare black opal. Howard claims,
"They say you can see the whole universe in opals. That's how f***ing old they are." Holy.
Amidst the 2008 NBA playoffs, Kevin Garnett insists on borrowing it as a good luck charm. When he does, he goes on to have one of the greatest performances of his life and refuses to give it back. When he eventually does, his performance drops. Kevin's experience with the black opal is just an example of how we give real, supernatural-like powers to gemstones when we choose to believe in their deeper spiritual and physical powers. How does the use of stones connect our faith, tradition, and cultures? Hildegard was not the first one to draw a medical and spiritual connection from stones. Her work sits on top of a long history of lapidary tradition. Our continued belief in the power that stones can hold connects the ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans, the first 12 Jewish tribes, medieval saints, and 15-time All-Star, 2004 MVP, and 2008 NBA champion Kevin Garnett, all to one thing in common: a shared belief in the power these gemstones can hold. So why does this matter today? Hildegard's lapidary shows us that these stones live at the intersection between science, religion, and superstition. They are part of our religious texts, observable in nature, and effective through our prayers and rituals. Although nowadays we may roll our eyes at healing crystals and gems, we are less far from Hildegard's Physica than we think. This text also exposed a continuous human pattern of loading ordinary objects with extra meaning and powers. For Kevin Garnett, it's a black opal, but for you, it might be a crystal, a wedding ring, or a lucky pair of socks. These objects in our life make non-material forces like fate, luck, and God feel close and tangible. Finally, Hildegard shows us how we're closer with people of different faiths, traditions, and age than we truly think.